Okay, I know what you're thinking. The DS-1 has sold 1.5 million copies, and that's enough if lined end to end to go to the sun and back. So why am I saying it's not popular? For all the sales of the DS-1, you would be hard pressed to think of more than 10 artists who have used it in its entire 40-year history. And if you were trying to think of 10 current artists, I just don't think you could do it. Yes, I know some famous guitar legends have used it, Kurt Cobain, Steve Vai, but over its 40-year history, it's only a few alternative bands and maybe a couple 80s shred guys that have really been prominent players of it. You don't see it in the wider culture. But I honestly think the DS-1 gets less credit than it deserves. So in this video, we're going to check out the sounds of the DS-1, some of the drawbacks that make it a little less popular than other pedals. And at the end, we're going to talk about some tips that you can overcome some of those drawbacks so you can make it work for you on your pedal board. Okay, the first drawback has nothing to do with sound and everything to do with human psychology. You will hear people endlessly go on about tube screamers and clones, but when it comes to the DS-1, the discussion ends at, oh yeah, it's a pretty good pedal. It was the first one I ever had, and I don't use it anymore. It's really thought of as your first distortion pedal. It's the Kraft mac and cheese of distortion pedals. Not just because it's orange, because it's mass manufactured and you can buy it for $50 down at the gas station. There's no magic chips. There's no top secret circuit boards that are covered in goop that can never be replicated. There's no 10-year waiting list. If you have a DS-1, you have the exact same pedal that 10-year-old down the street who just started playing guitar has. And the truth is, people like things that are rare. It makes them feel important. And the DS-1 makes nobody feel important. It has always been a mass manufactured pedal, and it hasn't had any real substantive changes since it came out until the Wazacraft version that added the custom mode that just kind of boosts the mids. But that's really it. And I think if it were more rare, there'd be a lot more hype around it and people would be more inclined to talk about it more and use it on their pedal boards. Kind of just as a status thing. Because now having a real clone on your pedal board is a status symbol that you either bought it for a lot of money or you were there before everybody else. Second drawback, or perceived drawback, it is not transparent at all. If you like your guitar sound, the DS-1 does not care. The DS-1 will impose its will on your guitar like a chimp who was denied birthday cake. It will maul your guitar sound and color it like dumping paint on a canvas. There's no subtlety here. The distortion sounds like fire ants eating the transistors of your circuit board, especially if you run it into a clean amp. Now, this is a sound that many people enjoy and like, myself included. But some people just don't like the sound. They don't like the high end. It doesn't have as much cream or butter as like an Overdriven amp. The distortion has like a metallic quality to it. It's grating and gritty. So right now I'm going to show you some of the distortion sounds out of the DS-1. We're running it into a clean amp. We're running into the Friedman Little Sister. It's as clean as I could get it. And then later we'll put it into an Overdriven amp so you can hear how that sounds. Okay, so here's the clean sound. Okay, the third drawback or perceived drawback is it is scooped. It is basically the opposite of a tube screamer. The mids are just cut out. This may not be a drawback depending on what sound you're going for, but it does make it hard to be heard in a mix. Especially live, if you have more than one guitar, it can easily get lost in the wash of the cymbals, the other guitar, and you're going to need a large volume boost to get up over the rest of the band because of that lack of mids cutting through. That's why people like the Klon and the Tomb Screamer so much, is because it cuts through a mix. So now I'm going to show you some of the functions of the tone knob. It's similar to the tone knob on a big muff, as it raises and lowers the highs using a shelf, and the mids kind of just stay where they're at. Okay, I'm going to start with the tone knob at noon. Again, it's the clean sound. Okay, the fourth drawback is that it doesn't have a lot of volume. You can crank the volume all the way up, and especially going into a clean amp, you might not get much louder than your clean sound. You may just achieve unity gain, or possibly, if you're running it into an amp with enough headroom, lose volume. So when switching on the pedal, you're imagining this loud distortion to come in, and what actually happens is you get quieter. And especially because those mids get cut out, that also makes the perceived loudness even quieter. You basically have to have the volume all the way cranked all the time, otherwise you might not get heard. You can even hear it in this clip from Nirvana when they're playing Aneurysm live.
Come on over, do let's wish. Love you so much, it makes me sick.
Every time he turns on the pedal, it gets quieter. So I'm going to demo the volume knob, showing you how that interacts with a clean amp and the loudness that you can get out of it. Okay, now we're going to check out the volume knob. Now, what can we do about all these drawbacks? The first one I can't help you with. If you need a guitar pedal to make you feel important, I suggest that you get on the 8-year waiting list for the King of Tone. For the rest of us who just want to get sick tones, so people on forums will argue into eternity about how we got such amazing sounds out of our guitar, there's hope. To deal with the issue of transparency in the DS1, all you have to do is hit the transparency switch. Your guitar will sound 100% just like your guitar. 100% transparent. In all seriousness, the DS1 is supposed to sound aggressive and harsh. If you don't like that, that's okay. Buy a clean boost, buy a graphic equalizer, and you can shape your sound, and it'll keep the sound of your guitar. You don't need to get a distortion pedal. So on to the real issues with the DS1, the mid-scoopness and the lack of volume. First, the mid-scoopness. This can be an issue. If you're playing live and you disappear in the mix, this is not helping anybody. So you might need a bit more mids to just boost you up a little bit. To get the DS1 to stand out more in a mix, you can pair it with an EQ pedal after the DS1, bumping up the mids until it's not quite as scooped so you don't disappear in the mix. So I'm going to be using the color box, and I'm going to turn up the mids until I get to that point where I feel like I'm going to be able to stand out in a mix and not get eaten up by the cymbals and the bass guitar. Okay, to fix the issues with the volume, you can pair it with a clean boost or an EQ pedal after the DS1 to give you that jump in volume that you might want when you turn on a distortion pedal. You need to put the boost after the DS1 because if you put it before the DS1, all you're going to do is boost into it and create more gain, but you will not get any more level because it's just going to compress. And this is because the pedal has run out of headroom. So any more volume you put into it is just going to compress and add gain. And this is why when you boost into an overdriven amp, you don't get any louder, you just get more distorted. All right, again, I'm going to use the color box. You don't have to use the color box. You can use a clean boost or a graphic EQ, but I enjoy the absurdity of using a $400 pedal to make a $50 pedal sound the way I want it to sound. So I'm going to use that pedal. Another thing you can do to fix the volume issue is you can just run the DS1 into an already overdriven amp. And like we talked about before, you won't get any more volume, but you won't lose any volume. You'll just get more distortion. And the DS1 can be a good way to add attack and sustain onto your lead playing. If you turn up the tone knob a bit, you can get that extra attack on your notes. Just turn the tone knob up until it gets a little bit harsh. Oftentimes, tones that sound bad in isolation sound good in a mix. So that little bit of extra tone, that's gonna let you cut through and add that attack that you want on your notes. Okay, so here's the overdriven amp sound. Thanks for watching the video. If you want to know some history of the Big Muff, you can watch this video here. Thanks. If you could like and subscribe to my channel, that would help me out, and that would let me know if y'all like content like this so I can make more of it.